Hey guys, it's Cecile. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to be continuing the series where I basically read the secondaries from the schools that I interviewed and was accepted at. And so today's school, as you can tell from the title, is Washington University in St. Louis. And this is one of the schools that I really did not expect to receive an interview from, especially because they're so stat heavy that I thought you needed above a 520 4.0 to get an interview from this school. But I got an interview in one of the very first rounds that they released interviews, and then I was accepted in the second round of acceptances. And I also got a merit scholarship as well, so WashU really did treat me well. And that's why I'm wearing my St. Louis made shirt that they gave us during second look. But anyways, just to cut to the chase, I'm going to be reading the 3 secondaries that I submitted to WashU. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about my experience at second look, because I will say out of all the second looks I went to, WashU had the best organized one. And it was honestly so fun and such a great time that it almost convinced me to go there. WashU was definitely in my final 4 when it came to deciding what med school I was going to go to. But anyways, let's get started. Okay, so we're just going to jump right into it. And the very first secondary prompt, with a maximum of 3,000 characters, was describe a time or situation where you have been unsuccessful or failed. And this is a prompt I definitely saw from other school secondaries as well. So I did reuse the story and just shortened it and extended it as needed. But of course, like other people might tell you, the biggest thing with this is not only describing why you were unsuccessful or failed, but how you learned from it and then what you did so that you wouldn't repeat that in the future. This is one of those growth essays where I really tried to show this happened, but I didn't let it faze me, and instead I used this as a learning opportunity, and now here's what I've done as a result. So here's what I wrote. Since May 2020, I have led my nonprofit, Notable Narratives, to help first-generation and/or low-income high school students achieve higher education. The organization began when my co-founder and I discussed the difficulties we faced when applying to college. I recalled stressful nights studying essay guides and FAFSA tutorials, unsure if I could afford to go. Together, we decided to use our experiences to advise future students. In our first admission cycle, the organization grew exponentially. With many college students being remote due to the pandemic, our advisors often mentored 5 to 10 students each, greatly expanding our reach. However, the next year was much busier as students transitioned to in-person classes and commitments, and as a result, most advisors could only mentor 1 to 3 students each. Instead of helping our goal of 700 students, we could only match 300 seniors before being forced to close our sign-up form early. While thinking about the hundreds of students we couldn't assist, disappointment set in. I read through dozens of students' emails, explaining their struggles and asking for guidance, and I had to turn away each student as we were beyond capacity. I internalized a lot of guilt, knowing what it was like to be in each student's shoes. However, I slowly realized we couldn't have foreseen this situation. As a leader, I had to acknowledge my limitations and accept that some circumstances were beyond my control. Despite recruiting more advisors than anticipated, it still wasn't enough. However, though we didn't meet expectations, more students will need assistance in the future. Thus, I viewed this setback as motivation and began to plan for the next year prematurely. Rather than waiting till the spring to begin recruiting advisors, I began my direct outreach efforts as soon as the application cycle ended in January. I spent hours messaging first-gen low-income students through social media and emailing FGLI student centers at colleges across the nation. By February, we surpassed the amount of advisors I was aiming for, with over 120 students signing up as mentors. Because of this early start, we were able to launch the first cohort of our leadership team and focus on partnering with other nonprofits. Now, years later, our nonprofit has helped over 1,750 students nationwide and has been recognized by national organizations like PwC and the Coalition application. Learning to remain resilient and rebound from failure has helped me handle unpredictable situations. When my Connect for Health patient suddenly lost their home in a fire, I immediately contacted the Red Cross and arranged housing, food, and clothing for her family. When a low-income freshman advisee of mine lost a family member, I worked with them to set up meetings with the dean, email the professors for extensions, and apply for funding to fly home. The skills I've learned from overcoming setbacks will continue to be transferable in my future as a medical student and physician. So as you can see in this essay, I outlined what happened, why it happened, what I learned from it, and then I even applied it to different situations like my patient or my freshman advisee, just to show that I've still used these skills outside of just this educational nonprofit setting. Because I did kind of want to relate it back to medicine and healthcare at the end. Moving on, the next essay is one that says it's optional, but it's pretty much not optional because it's essentially the why WashU and also your chance to talk about your background and connect the two essentially. So this prompt is there anything else you'd like to share with the committee on admissions? Some applicants use this space to describe unique experiences, obstacles, and/or challenges they faced in their journey to medical school with a maximum of 3,000 characters. Now, I would 100% recommend doing this essay because you honestly don't lose anything by giving them additional information, and if anything, this is your chance to strengthen your interest in the school. So I wrote, my commitment to health equity began with my experiences helping my Middle Eastern immigrant parents navigate the U.S. healthcare system. Growing up, I relied on community clinics for yearly vaccinations. Years later, I led Connects for Health, connecting hospital patients to food, housing, federal aid, and other resources. These experiences inspired me to create my own major, infectious epidemiology. Designing my curriculum, I studied how social determinants of health and historical inequities shape the burden of infectious diseases by combining quantitative analysis with sociocultural perspectives. Washington University School of Medicine in St. Louis's mission of conducting groundbreaking research, providing compassionate patient care, and preparing the next generation of leaders in biomedicine will build my interdisciplinary experience as an undergraduate and combine my desire for a medical school that prioritizes both scientific advancement and holistic care. Research has been an important part of my undergraduate experience, and I've explored it in many different forms. I've conducted wet lab research, worked on clinical trials and chart reviews, led scoping reviews, and even explored social science research. Most of these projects are linked through my interest in infectious diseases and health equity, which are fields that I hope to continue to research through the Advocacy Global Health pathway within WashU's Explore program. I envision myself pursuing a project under the Division of Infectious Diseases, expanding upon my parasitology research by studying neglected tropical diseases with a mentor like Dr. Mitrova or Dr. Fisher. Attending a medical school like WashU that prioritizes research and develops leaders in academic medicine will give me the opportunity to continue exploring my interdisciplinary interests locally and globally. Beyond my research, I also aim to stay involved in community service to support community health initiatives. At WashU, I can apply what I learned as a Connects for Health volunteer while helping patients access primary care through the Pro Bono Clinic. I look forward to connecting with the St. Louis community and understanding its local disparities, while drawing upon the inequities I encountered growing up and volunteering in Toledo, Ohio. Furthermore, I hope to advocate for diverse patient populations while building community with my classmates through groups like LGBTQ Med and Delu Health. I believe my background in research and community engagement will complement my medical training, allowing me to contribute meaningfully to patient care and public health initiatives. WashU's mission aligns perfectly with my values and interests in research, medicine, and service. By attending WashU Medicine, I'm confident I'll develop into a socially conscious physician and a future leader in academic medicine while staying true to my Midwestern roots. Now, I gotta say, I added that Midwest part at the end just because I know that WashU struggles a little bit because of its location, and I wanted to make it clear, like, yo, I'm from Ohio. I'd be okay with living in Missouri. And I think technically that's probably why WashU has like a higher acceptance rate, like proportionally. It's just because not as many people apply because it's in St. Louis, Missouri, in my opinion. But yeah, I think this was a really strong essay, and it basically did what I wanted it to do, which is describing my background, my interests, and then my interest in WashU, and how I'm able to take my background, everything I want to do in medicine, and then do it at WashU given all the resources and programming that they have. And I explicitly mention that stuff both in these essays and also my interview. And then moving on, the third essay is pretty straightforward, but it's essentially the gap year essay, and it's described in chronological order your activities during the times that you were not enrolled as a full-time student. So this is 2,000 characters. And for those of you who have watched my other videos, you've probably heard me talk about all this before, but I'm gonna read it outside. And for those of you who have watched my other like secondary reading videos, you've definitely heard this before, but I'm gonna read it again anyways. So I said, I currently work full-time at Northwestern Medicine as a medical dermatology scribe and researcher. Since starting in early June, I've had extensive clinical exposure, documenting patient visits and collaborating closely with physicians. This has deepened my understanding of patient care, medical decision-making, and the importance of teamwork in medicine. While working on case reports, I'm also developing a year-long research project focused on Kaposi sarcoma, a cancer prevalent among patients with HIV/AIDS, to explore my interest in infectious diseases and dermatology. I hope to study how a KS diagnosis impacts these patients' quality of life, with hopes of identifying potential gaps in care and developing strategies to improve patient outcomes. I am also dedicating time to expanding Notable Narratives, my nonprofit, to continue to support other first-gen low-income high schoolers as they apply to college. This year marks our 5th college application season, and I hope to increase our reach, especially given our recent partnership with the Coalition application, which is an application used by over 150 colleges to expand college access to underrepresented students. Though I've already recruited 150 advisors for our upcoming season, I work weekly with my leadership team to prioritize student outreach, nonprofit partnerships, workshops, and other initiatives to support students. Lastly, I'm aiming to volunteer at Community Health, the largest volunteer-based free clinic in the nation, as a lab technician. There, I hope to work with a diverse patient population, like I did at Brown, to advance community care. All of these experiences will further prepare me for medical school, where I hope to keep promoting health equity and advocating for underserved communities. So this was a very straightforward, like, what are you doing in your gap year? No need to like make it a fancy story or anything. Every time I write one of these essays, I basically divide it up where I talk about my job, my educational work, just because that's like a passion of mine, and then also what I'm doing in terms of like volunteering. Because when I was planning ahead for this gap year, I knew like, yes, I'm gonna work this full-time job, but I want to continue the things I did in undergrad to show that continuity, especially because I'm saying like I want to keep doing these things in med school. And so hence like notable narratives, my educational access work, and then hence like me picking up a volunteer position. And although I ended up not becoming like a lab technician there, I ended up working at a FQHC instead. So essentially like the same thing, volunteering for community health, and it shows the same values. Yeah, overall these secondaries were pretty straightforward. There weren't any like trick questions or anything like that. And I would say the same of my interview process there. WashU was unique in that they had like the pre-recorded interview where it was like through Kira, I believe, and they gave me a video prompt, and then I had like 2 minutes where I responded to the prompt and I was being recorded. But honestly, that was really straightforward too, especially after doing like the AAMC preview. I felt like it was pretty similar, and I didn't even take the Casper exam. And then for them, they had an open and a closed file interview. And I remember I was really scared for my closed file because I was actually with the Dean of Admissions. But even that was super chill, and like everyone was really kind, and I didn't really feel that stressed during the interview. And then when I went to WashU for their like second look, I was there for 3 days, and I had such a great time. They really spoiled us with like gifts and merch, and they like paid for my flight and hotel there and everything. And everyone I met was like so genuine. We had such a great time exploring St. Louis, even despite the fact that it was like literally a hurricane outside. Like it was storming the entire weekend, but I still had such a great time. And we made a group chat like after that weekend, and we continued to talk about it while we were all deciding like where we were going to commit and stuff. And it still low-key makes me a little sad thinking about the fact that I'm not going to be at the medical school with the other people I met and loved there. But I'll definitely be cheering them on from afar, and it was a cool experience regardless. So yeah, that's it for today. Those are my WashU secondaries. Feel free to comment down below if you have any questions. And then of course, don't forget to subscribe so you can see the rest of my like reading secondary videos, and also all of my upcoming medical school content, which is going to be super informative and super cool. So yeah, subscribe, hit that bell, and stay notified. Thanks guys.